Using the power of the internet, you can now watch GLC on any TV in the US, Canada, the UK, and Ireland with Roku. Basically, a box that connects to your television. Roku acts as a middleman between your internet connection and your television. So if you have internet service at your home, chances are high that you can watch all of the great GLC programming. And best of all, it's highly affordable too, with only a one-time fee ranging from $50 to $100. Log on to our website, www.glc.us.com, for details on how you can watch GLC via Roku.
Well, welcome to Update News. I'm Amy Cooper. It is Monday, and you're who?
I'm Rick, somebody.
Vodge. Dr. Vodge.
Dr. Vodge, I'm sorry.
Well, we've got a lot of news today to cover in a very short amount of time because we actually have two videos today.
And they're very important.
Both of them are. The first one that we're going to be sharing with you comes from Doron Keidar, who is in Israel. He's been on the front lines. He went home and filmed a video, and it looks like he might be going back. So he's got some really important things to share with us. Check it out. We'll be back with you right after this.
Hi, this is Doron Keidar. I'm back here now from my trip in Israel where I did my reserve duty for the past few weeks now. As you know, my unit has been replacing the Golani Brigade, which has been doing a lot of the fighting in Gaza in the past few weeks now, trying to eliminate the threat of Hamas along the Gaza border, where they've been firing rockets by the thousands. In fact, they have fired over 3,000 rockets throughout the whole operation, Protective Edge, where they have been bombarding the south of Israel. They have been bombarding the residents that are living in the south. And as you know, we have a place in the south where we've been living, and I can tell you it is no fun at all to be living under a rain of fire. In fact, right before I went to celebrate my first Sabbath as I got out of reserve, there were 2 rockets taken out by the Iron Dome, literally right over our house. So it is no fun at all to be living under this terror of the Hamas along the south of Israel, and that's what's been happening within the last 2 months plus now, and it hasn't stopped yet. In fact, what has been happening is that Israel has been trying to work on negotiating with Hamas to no avail. In fact, right before the ceasefire was over, they rained over 100 rockets into the south of Israel just a few days ago. And I remember in my phone, we have this app that actually notifies us every time there is a rocket fired in any community in the south. And it was literally going off nonstop every few seconds. There was another beep on my phone notifying me that another rocket was being fired on one of the communities in the south. So this is what's been happening, and Hamas is not stopping. In fact, Israel, because of this, has had to bring 10,000 more reservists again to fight in Gaza and to try to eliminate the threat along the south of Israel, where rockets are being fired nonstop. In addition to that, we have actually taken out both the number 3 and the number 4 heads of Hamas in Gaza just today, or a few hours ago. And we're trying to do our best to eliminate the threat. We're trying to pinpoint and take out these heads of the Hamas. But in reality, Hamas is here to stay. They are not going to budge. They're not going to stop with their agenda, which has always been their agenda, which is to destroy Israel, to drive Israel to the sea, to eliminate every Jew living in the land of Israel. That is their agenda. That is their objective. They are not a nation. They are not a sovereign group that you can sit and discuss land swaps or anything like that. They have received complete, total sovereignty over the Gaza Strip since 2005. And what have they done? They have rained rockets into the south of Israel nonstop. This is what Hamas has been doing. This is their objective, and make no mistake about it. In addition, For those of you who've been following the news, you might have heard of ISIS. ISIS is I wouldn't say a new terrorist organization. Really, what it is terrorist organizations give birth to worse terrorist organizations. In other words, other leaders will come out of these terrorist organizations like Al Qaeda and Boko Haram and all these different ones. And what they're going to do is they're going to start a new one that's going to be more aggressive, more vicious, and really that's all that this terrorist organization is. There's nothing new under the sun. They have the same objective, which is to subdue the world under the rule of Islam all over the world. That is their objective. That is their desire. And what they're doing is that they have been raining terror throughout Iraq, Syria, and those are the two places where they've mainly been slaughtering Christians by the thousands. And this is really what's despicable in what's happening in the world today, is the United Nations is putting pressure on Israel, the United States is putting pressure on Israel. All these countries that are self-righteous are coming in and they're trying to put pressure on Israel and tell them, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. You need to show restraint. Whereas there's a terrorist organization that is butchering children. We're not talking about coming and fighting against militaries here. We're talking about these terrorist groups. They come into a town, they come into a village, they snatch the children from the parents, and then they butcher the parents in front of the children. And then what they'll do is they'll behead the child once they're done with that. What they're trying to do is instill fear and terror in the hearts of Christians throughout all the Middle East, to let them know that Islam is here and Islam is here to stay, and that we will conquer, we will destroy, and your only way for freedom, your only way to survive is to join the crowd. Either you become Muslim or you die. That's the clear message that ISIS is making, and it's no different really than what Hamas is making. The only difference is that Hamas and the Palestinian people, if you will, because it's not really the Palestinian people's will, it's these terrorist organizations who are over the Palestinian people. And in fact, over 75%, I would say, of the Palestinian people are sick and tired of Hamas and the reign of terror along the Gaza Strip. This is the reality. They do not want terrorist organizations who are extremists ruling their people, because they know that what happens is that they try to pick a fight with Israel, and then Israel has to retaliate. Israel has to send fire back to where the fire is being fired at into Israel, and that means terror for the civilians who are living in the Gaza Strip. So it's terror on both sides, both on the Israeli side and on the Palestinian side. There's people that are living under this hell, but in reality, the same agenda is for both Hamas, the Boko Haram, ISIS, Al Qaeda, and all these terrorist groups, and that's really what's happening all throughout the Middle East. They are trying to make a clear message to the West that we are here and we're going to conquer. And there's a huge threat today also in the West, because many of these terrorists actually have European passports, because the Europe has brought in all these immigrants and they've given them citizenship, and now these people can travel all over where throughout the the EU, and they can travel freely without any check, without anything at all, because hey, you're part of the European Union nations. So you can imagine what a threat this is, and how much work it is for the intelligence communities throughout Europe to try to decipher which of these are terrorists, which of these are real refugees who are trying to run away from whatever it was that was trying to either kill them or famine or whatever it was where they came from, and to decipher between that and terrorists. So this is a huge threat, not just to Europe, but keep in mind also to the United States, because these are the two sides of the world that the Islamic agenda is trying to eradicate and destroy. These are the two entities that they see as the great Satan and the small Satan. That's who they target. So that's just to give you a quick update about what is happening right now and how this agenda is trying to take over. So pretty soon here, it looks like I might get called up to reserve again, to reserve duty, because the fire hasn't stopped. The terror in the south hasn't stopped. And pretty soon you might be hearing my reports again from Israel, and who knows from which border I'll be positioned on with my unit. So that's the reality that we're living in today in Israel. So I just want to thank you all for praying for us, for standing with us, for following what we're doing. May God bless you and keep you and be with you. And shalom and blessings from Zion. Thank you.
What do you think of that?
Insightful. It was good to hear from Doron again.
Well, he's confirming what I'm finding from a lot of different sources, that haven't heard much about it in our media. We heard a lot about the Yazidis being persecuted,
Yes.
but what he was saying about the Christians being beheaded, even the children being beheaded,
Shocking.
we're hearing that from some very reliable sources, and we'll probably be bringing more of that news to you sometime this week. Right now, we've got an article from the AFP, Paris. From the rescue plane, which took them on a one-way journey to France, 2 Iraqi refugees revealed tales of rape and fear at the hands of Islamic State that forced them to flee their homeland with nothing. Rene, who didn't want to give his last name, said the Islamic extremists currently rampaging through Syria and Iraq were as terrifying as they were sophisticated in their communication methods. The jihadists raped women and girls, kidnapped people, Rene said. It was very hard. We have friends that are Muslims who are very nice, but these people, I don't know why they do that. Because we're Christians, that's all. He added that the militant from IS had pre-warned residents in Mosul of their imminent arrival in June. Even before they arrived, I got 3 direct messages on my mobile from the jihadists, Rene said. Rene was one of 40 refugees who landed Thursday in Paris after being flown out of Erbil, along with Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius, who indicated that France was prepared to take in more people in extreme cases. Fabius told BFM TV earlier Friday that Paris would give priority to those who had a link with France. That could be several hundred, maybe a few thousand people in our case, he added. He stressed that if all the refugees left Iraq, this would in effect hand victory to the extremists. But Western countries had to act to save these extreme cases. Rene, the refugee, said, there are a lot of Christians that want to come to France or to Europe because it's impossible to live with people that hate us. We're humiliated and persecuted. We can't live like that. We'll have to start again from zero, admitted Rene. It's hard, but it will be better for us than to live under threats and insecurity.
Rajad, a 31-year-old English teacher, also fled in panic from the Islamic State threat after having lived in fear of jihadists for years. In 2005, they made me wear the veil because it was Ramadan. If I didn't wear it, they would kill me. They're horrific. They want to force us to convert, make us Muslim. They want to kill us just because we're Christian. If she had stayed, Rajad was also declined to give her second name, would have faced a stark choice, convert or pay a high monthly infidel tax. She chose another path. We left everything in a few hours. It was horrible. France is our last chance. We have nothing, no house, no job. We've lost everything. I used to be an English teacher. Now I'm nothing. The IS, the Islamic State group, was born out of the ashes of the 2003 U.S.-led invasion in Iraq that gained strength when it spread into neighboring Syria, where it has wreaked havoc as it seizes territory from President Bashar al-Assad. After their high-profile seizure of Mosul in June, IS militants went back on the offensive earlier this month, seizing the city of Erbil and home to some 2 million people, which prompted hundreds of thousands of its citizens to flee. IS attacked mainly Christian and Yazidi Kurdish areas east and west of the city, which sparked a fresh exodus of civilians and prompted the United States to launch airstrikes to halt the extremist charge.
Well, you know what? We want to stay in France with an article from the AP. 2 French girls, aged 15 and 17, have been captured by a security net that authorities are using to ferret out citizens who are considering traveling to other countries to join jihads. The action is one example of how France is taking judicial action against citizens suspected of seeking careers as foreign fighters, even if they have yet to leave French soil. Thousands of European citizens have made the trip to Syrian battlegrounds, but there is no unified plan of action in Europe. France is leading the way in Europe in the battle against this problem, and its sweep could get even wider with a planned law that would allow passports to be confiscated from those suspected of planning to fight in Syria or Iraq, and would create new measures to prosecute jihadi wannabes or returnees. France is also planning to join other European countries in blocking internet sites that espouse the jihadi cause.
Well, all of Europe is worried about the return of battle-hardened citizens looking to continue their jihad in their homeland. France, with a Muslim population estimated at 5 million, the largest in Western Europe, is particularly concerned about the flight of youths to the battlefields. The concern has grown acute with the beheading of American journalist James Foley by an executioner with an English accent. The group, calling itself the Islamic State, now regarded by Western authorities as the most brutal among jihadi organizations, claimed responsibility this week by posting a video of the slaying on the internet.
France also points to the suspected killer of 4 Jewish people at the Jewish Museum in Brussels in May, Frenchman Mehdi Nemosh, who fought in Syria, as evidence of the need to prevent potential catastrophes. The French Interior Minister said in a recent interview with the online publication Mediapart, "Must I wait for a new Mehdi Nemosh to fire before I act?" He was referring to the tough new measures to be debated this fall and contending they will not compromise civil liberties. French authorities say there are some 900 people from France who have been implicated in jihad, meaning they have taken part in one, plan to join one, or are returning from one. Several dozen have been killed.
Well, such measures would put France ahead of the other countries in its effort to stop the problem, which some experts see as absolutely getting worse. It is impossible to quantify the risk of terrorist attacks by returning foreign fighters. Nigel Inkster, a former counterterrorism chief for Britain's M16 spy agency, wrote on his blog Friday for the International Institute of Strategic Studies. But he said those returning from Syria and Iraq are likely to be better trained and motivated and more battle-hardened than those who are trained in Pakistan's tribal areas over the past decade.
Britain has struggled to deal with homegrown jihadi fighters since 4 British men inspired by al-Qaeda blew themselves up on the London transit system in 2005, killing 52 people. An estimated 400 to 500 Britons have fought in Syria, scores of whom have returned home. Police have arrested 69 people this year regarding suspected Syria-related terrorist offenses, compared to 25 in all of 2013. Britain emphasizes a soft approach to routing out would-be jihadi or those returning from such conflicts. Its PREVENT program highlights outreach and aims to get institutions such as universities and prisons, a known breeding ground for radicalization, to watch for people at risk.
Germany also emphasizes outreach. It has about 400 citizens who have become jihadi fighters in Syria and elsewhere, a third of whom have returned. School counseling, emergency hotlines, and programs to help find jobs for returning jihadi fighters are used. Returnees are kept under observation, but can only be charged if there is proof that they joined a terror organization.
In Belgium, some are calling for a Homeland Security Office, but the current caretaker government has been unable to tackle the terrorism issue. Belgium, with a population of 11 million, has between 76 and 298 jihadi, according to a study by the International Center for the Study of Radicalization. Further north, about 300 people from Sweden, Denmark, and Norway have traveled to Syria, most believed to have joined the Islamic State group.
Could Foley's grisly public murder become a deterrent to would-be jihadi? Some think not. It is not the first time beheadings have been made available to the world via the internet. The IS pronouncement in June for a self-styled caliphate straddling the border of Iraq and Syria has energized some wannabe jihadi, according to Peter Newman, a King's College London professor and director of the International Center for the Study of Radicalization. They are saying maybe this is ugly, but there's a bigger cause that needs to be kept in mind. the creation of the caliphate. This is the price you have to pay for a really historical project, Newman said.
The unidentified French teenage suspects mentioned earlier, one from Tarbes in the southwest of France, the other from Lyon, allegedly acted together. They're neither the first adolescents nor the first females arrested in France. Some of those arrested have been returning from Syria or been fetched by families at the Turkish border. The girls are among some 60 people being investigated in France for criminal association in relation with a terrorist enterprise.
Okay, and this next article comes to us from the Huffington Post. Well, in the wake of journalist James Foley's brutal beheading, a 22-year-old woman is vowing to copycat his execution and become the first female jihadist from the UK to kill a Western captive in Syria. Khadija Dari, originally from London, England, is married to a Swedish man and Islamic State fighter named Abu Bakr. The couple moved to Syria in 2012 and are currently living alongside the extremist militant group with their son, according to London's Evening Standard. Via Twitter, Dari has been discussing her jihadist ambitions in Syria, though her account has recently been taken down.
The Evening Standard reports that before moving to Syria, Dari was reportedly a regular at the Lewisham Islamic Center in southeast London, having converted to Islam as a teenager. This is the same mosque linked to the two Woolwich killers who were convicted of the brutal 2013 murder of drummer Lee Rigby on the street in broad daylight. You remember that?
I do. The center, trying to distance itself from Dari, said in a statement, as reported by The Guardian, "It is rather unfortunate that time and time again, the media do not seem to understand that whether or not any individual who has ever prayed in the mosque has gone on to be involved in acts that are considered to be illegal, that this should in no way reflect on the mosque or on the message the mosque imparts." When asked to condemn Dari's tweet, the mosque described the request as being loaded with an Islamophobic assumption that Muslims by default condone such brutality, according to the newspaper.
Last July, Dari was featured in a documentary on the UK's Channel 4 about British women joining Islamist militants in Syria. In the film, she referred to herself as Miriam and told cameras that she doesn't consider herself a fighter, but would instead like to become a martyr. Let's go to Lars Innerson's video,
Okay.
and he'll give us a little bit more of an update.
Shalom, I'm Lars Enerson with the Watchman International, coming to you with this report on the situation in Israel, Monday, August 25. Well, the rockets continue to pour down over Israel from Gaza by Hamas. And in the first 5 days alone, that since Hamas broke the latest ceasefire agreement, they fired 570 rockets into Israel. Yesterday, 130 fell within 24 hours. And the situation is becoming very critical now. A 4-year-old child was killed by mortar fire from Gaza on Friday. A synagogue in Ashdod was hit by a rocket. Nobody was killed, but several people were critically injured. Reports are coming in from several places around the country where people are wounded and some of them critically injured by the increasing rocket fire from Hamas. Gilad Erdan, who is one of the members of the Security Cabinet in Israel, said yesterday that a new ground operation into Gaza is now closer than ever. And Israel has mobilized 10,000 more troops, reservists being called up ready to go into Gaza now. But no order has been given yet. And everybody is waiting to see what is going to happen. Yesterday, a British military expert reported on the situation, saying that it is obvious that the government of Israel has decided to not win in Gaza against Hamas. And he continued to say that modern warfare today is not geared towards a prolonged conflict. It needs to be finished within a short time and not be dragged out. And he said it's becoming a real serious problem for Israel. And so this is a problem. We know that From the very beginning of Operation Protective Edge, Prime Minister Netanyahu said that quiet will be met by quiet. In other words, we're not out to defeat Hamas. We're out to establish quiet. If Hamas stops firing rockets, we will stop attacking Gaza. Well, that has not worked. It's over 45 days later, and the rockets continue to pour down over Israel. Hamas is not a regular military organization, or it's not a regular government governing Gaza either. Hamas is a suicide terrorist organization with an agenda to wipe Israel off the map. And not only that, but to establish the Islamic Caliphate first in the Middle East and then over the entire world. They have no regards for civilian casualties in Gaza or in Israel. They have the exact same agenda that IS in Iraq and Syria, that Hezbollah in Lebanon, that Al-Qaeda and all the other fanatical Islamic terrorist organizations have. So they will not care about casualties in Gaza or being hit hard by Israel, as the defense minister Moshe Yaalon is saying now that Israel will do. The only thing that will stop Hamas will be to defeat them. We have to remember that. And so we need to pray, friends. Now, one of the scriptures that we have come back to several times in the last weeks of reporting on the situation is from Isaiah chapter 37, the words of King Hezekiah when he sent a message to the prophet Isaiah as the Assyrians were about to attack Jerusalem, and the situation was very, very grim. I'm going to read those words from Isaiah chapter 37, beginning in verse 3. Thus says Hezekiah, this day is a day of distress, of rebuke, and of disgrace. Children have come to the point of birth, and there is no strength to bring them forth. And then he ends the message to Isaiah in the end of next verse, saying, therefore lift up your prayer for the remnant that is left. And we know that Isaiah did pray, and his prayer turned the situation around. The Assyrians left, the siege was lifted, and Jerusalem was spared. And this is what we need to do now. We need to intensify our prayers. We ask you please to go to our website, thewatchman.org, download the prayer alerts in the Elijah Prayer Army, and there you can also see that we now will launch a new program to mobilize prayer cells all around the world through the Elijah Prayer Army, where people come together and take responsibility for one day of fasting a week. And in that way, we're going to unite together as prayer groups, prayer cells, and I'm going to give specific reports to all of those prayer cells how to pray beyond these prayer updates and until we see victory. This is a serious moment for Israel, and we need to stand in the gap. So go to our website, thewatchman.org, subscribe to the prayer alerts in the Elijah Prayer Army. I'm Lars Enarsson with the Watchman International, coming to you from Sweden at the moment, reporting on the situation in Israel. God bless you. Shalom.
Well, since the ceasefire ended last week, the Israeli Defense Force has really been focusing their efforts on real defense. And they're being very targeted. They've taken out several of the leaders. And on Sunday, the Israeli Air Force struck a car traveling in northern Gaza, which was carrying Mohammed al-Ghul, the Hamas terrorist responsible for the transfer of funds to Hamas. A photo from Channel 2 News shows dollar bills around the charred vehicle. Another senior officer who was assassinated was Mohammed Abu Smala. He was involved in the 94 murder of an IDF officer in the Rafah area, and over the years he was responsible for several suicide bombings that killed 8 soldiers and wounded more than 20. We love you, and we will see you again on Wednesday.